an example of how to write an equation of the parabola, but in this case, so we saw some of this, right? You had homework problems where they maybe gave you like C, but they didn't tell you A and B, but then they gave you like the vertex point, and you could figure out A and B doing a couple of different things. In this problem, the issue is none of the points are the vertex point. So starting in vertex form isn't going to really be that helpful for us because we don't have the vertex point. So I would actually try to write my equation in standard form. So just a little reminder that standard form looks like this: ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, this kind of goes back to what we talked about when we were doing some of those problems. When someone gives you a point and tells you that the point is on the graph, remember how we talked about you can plug that point in as x and y into the equation. So we kind of referred to like linear equations when you guys have y equals mx plus b. And then like you have the slope maybe, and someone tells you the line goes through the point 3, 4. That when you want to figure out more information, you use this as a package where when you plug in 4 for y, you also plug in 3 for x, and that helps narrow down your variables and makes it easier to solve. So we're going to use that same idea over here in this problem. It's not going to be as simple as that one, but there are ways to solve it. So let's think about the point 0, 0, and this point is a gift. You'll see why I would call it a gift in a minute. So if this is standard form of the equation, I know nothing about it. I don't know A, B, or C. If I plug in this x-y pair, I have 0 equals A times 0 squared plus B times 0 plus C. If I simplify this, I have 0 equals, so A times 0 would just be 0. B times 0, 0. And so I'm left with C. So any point where they give you the x value as 0, see how nicely that worked out to find C for us. So even if this was the point 0, 5, the only difference would have been that we would have gotten like C is equal to 5 instead of 0. So any point that has that 0x coordinate is a really, really nice point and makes your problem a lot simpler. So we'll finish this simpler one, and then we'll talk about what if they made it more complicated, what approach we would use to get through that problem. Okay? So then the second point they give us is negative 1, 1. So this means when x is plugged in as negative 1, y can be plugged in as positive 1. So I'm going to do both of those things. And again, I'm going to simplify what I can here. So I would have 1 equals negative 1 squared is just 1. So I have A. Negative 1 times B would be minus B. And then I have plus C. Now, I know C is 0, but to talk about this later, for right now, I'm going to leave the equation in this format, and then we'll switch it up in a minute. So I get this second equation that says 1 equals A minus B plus C. I have a third point, which means I can build a third equation. So the third point is the point 1, 5, which means y is 5 when x is 1. So again, I'm going to plug those values in and simplify the equation that I have. So I have 5 equals A plus B plus C. Now, in this specific problem, okay, this first point that I said you guys were really lucky to have, this is why you were so lucky to have it. Once you know what C is, you can go to each of these other equations and rewrite them with that value of C. Okay? In this case, C is 0, so it basically is going to have no impact on my equation. So this first equation is just going to become 1 equals A minus B. And the second equation here, if I plug in 0 for C, I would have 5 equals A plus B. So I know that C is 0, but to write a complete equation, I need to know an A value, a B value, and a C value. So C has been found. Okay, got it. I don't know A or B, but I know this. How would I solve for A and B? Koji? Good. Okay, so I would do substitution or elimination. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and do elimination because it looks like it's lined up nicely. So I get 2A equals 6, which means that A is 3. Once I know that A is 3, I can plug that back into one of the equations. Let's say I choose to use this one to solve for B, and I would get that B is 2. Okay. What all this information means is there's one equation, one parabola that fits those 3 points, and that parabola's equation is y equals, the A value is 3, so the coefficient of the quadratic term is 3. The B value is 2, so the coefficient of the linear term is 2. And the C value is 0, so the constant would be 0. I don't need to write plus 0 when it's 0. Okay, so this would be my equation. Kiefer?
Why did you not calculate C into that equation?
I can write plus 0 at the end, but it doesn't make a difference. So because if C was 5, I would definitely write plus 5 because it's going to make a difference in my equation. Because it's 0, whether I write the plus 0 or not, it's not going to matter. Okay? All right, they're not all going to work out this simply. Okay? So you guys can make a note on your paper or your note guide if you want. I'm going to make the note up here in red and kind of talk about a what-if scenario. So if you see it in your homework or something like that, you can figure it out. Or maybe I'm not. Okay. So what if this first point wasn't 0, 0? Okay? So don't change the example. All the work you've done is done for the example. I'm just going to talk about what if it was a little more difficult than this, what would you do? So let's say that instead of 0, 0, I had like the point 3, 2. Okay. So let's say this didn't exist. Again, don't change it on your example. Your example's done. That's the right answer for that problem. But I'm just kind of giving you a what if in case you see something more complicated. So if my other point was 3, 2 instead of 0, 0, the equation setup would have said the y value is equal to A times the x value squared. My battery is very low. Plus B times the x value. Please. I'm going to cry. Okay. Okay, sorry. So you would finish filling in the 3 here. And then you would have plus C. And so you're going to have 9A plus 3B plus C. And that's going to be equal to 2. Now you would use this equation, and this equation to solve a system of 3 equations and 3 unknowns, which will be more work, but you can do it because you've already done it before.